All right. We are off and running on Off the Rails Sports Podcast. Welcome one, welcome all. If you could hit that like and subscribe button. We are winding down the 2025 MLB season, and this is our year end in review. Next week, we're going to do another podcast reviewing all the baseball awards that come out, who didn't get the right award, blah, blah, blah. But now we're going to do a deeper dive into who we thought was good, who overachieved, who underachieved, things like that. We are joined by the co-host with the most, Brian. How you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing good. Happy to be here, as always.
Well, I like the ability of you to lie. It's way too early in the morning for humans to actually be up existing, but I do appreciate it. You could go into a career in politics, obviously, with that. You almost sounded convincing. But we have the 2025 season, and the Dodgers are repeat world champions. The first team in basically 25 years since the Yankees did it. And it was an epic World Series. I mean, my heart still breaks for the Toronto Blue Jays. I am a devout American League guy. I hate the Yankees. I hate the Dodgers. But man, what a good World Series. What say you, Brian?
It was a really good World Series. I'm also an American League guy, and I'm always going to root for the American League team. I mean, 9 times out of 10. I will say I was on the Giants bandwagon there during their little run. I did like their teams.
Sure.
Uh, but yeah, most of the time I'm rooting for the American League. I picked the Blue Jays to win sincerely. Wasn't just riding the bandwagon of hating the Dodgers. I thought they were going to win. Came up a little short, but it was a really good World Series. The thing that's kind of bugging me lately that you see on all the uh, social media things nowadays, because, living in the moment, right?
Right. Right.
Uh, this was the greatest World Series ever. I don't know if I'd go that far, or recency bias is the phrase I'm looking
Yeah,
for, right?
absolutely.
There have
Yeah.
been plenty of great World Series that went 7 games, nail biters every game, big dramatic moments over and over again. To say that this one was the greatest one ever, that's kind of hard to actually put to and actually mean it. You're just riding that bandwagon of the moment and the high that you came off of watching a really good World Series. But let's not overreact to things.
Absolutely. I think that's an astute point. Everybody thinks in the moment. I will say unequivocally, the greatest World Series ever was the 75 one against the Reds when the Red Sox lost in 7. I actually watched game 6 the other day on YouTube, and I wanted to cry again. And then, of course, we got the 86 one where God just poked his finger in our eye again as Red Sox fans. But taking outside that, I think there was the classic World Series with the San Francisco Giants and the Kansas City Royals. That was an amazing one where basically Madison Bumgarner pitched every inning of every game to shut down the Royals as they were on the verge of victory. I do think about the 2001 World Series in the aftermath of the terrible 9/11 situation that Arizona rallied in the ninth inning against Mariano Rivera to beat the Yankees. But I mean, this was amazing. And I think this is a shot in the arm that baseball truly needed. I will say that I am unequivocally, I understand totally that Rob Manfred will screw up this goodwill. I know that they will find a way to somehow butcher the great thing they have going into the offseason. They will figure out some stupid thing to do. But let's get into the teams. Let's start with the Red Sox. We're both Red Sox fans. How would you assess the year for them, Brian?
Uh, it was it was a step up from last season, but not the step that was projected or expected. So if you go back to 2024, the team finally crawled their way out of the basement because they had been looming in last place for a couple of years. They moved up to third place in the division, had some really good prospects coming of age. Duran was most notable in that, Willie Abreu, and Trevor Story played some, but he was hurt again. The
Of
team
course.
made progress. They had some pitchers coming around. There was some development there. You could see things moving in the right direction. They trade for Garrett Crochet in the offseason, who's expected to be this big time ace starting pitcher who hadn't really been that before. You know, he's a guy that kind of battled injuries and stuff, but showed promise. And they signed him immediately to a long term deal. That turned out to be great. They signed Alex Bregman as a free agent on what everybody expected to be a 1 year deal, and it turned out that that's all it is. And the team made some moves. They finished again in third place, but they were able to squeak into a wild card spot. They had a really good run for a while there in the middle of the season, but then they kind of faltered towards the end and petered out pretty quickly in the playoffs. So they made a move. They had got better. Not better is not better enough for Red Sox Nation. And I think people are a little bit disappointed that they didn't lock it in a little bit harder at the trade deadline, get a couple more pieces to help them. So we're going to see what happens in this offseason because another third place finish in the division and an early playoff exit is probably not going to be acceptable.
Well said. Well said. I would say that the Red Sox are the one team I can think of in the last 30 years that about every 10 years they take a swing on a pitcher in a trade, and usually it works out really well. We start with Pedro Martinez. You and I will slightly disagree about the Chris Sale impact. And now we have Garrett Crochet. And it was kind of a flyer on Garrett because he hadn't pitched an enormous amount of innings for the Chicago White Sox. They gave up quite a bit of capital. I think it's a good trade for both teams. Chicago's rebuilding. I will say that this is a very disappointing year for me. I am proud that they came in third. They battled the Yankees in the playoffs. I still, to my dying day, think if we had Rafael Devers in the lineup, we would have won that series against the Yankees. And you and I have had text exchange. And the thing is, we were told by Craig Breslow that by getting rid of the Rafael Devers contract, they were going to have money to spend in the offseason. We will see if that comes to fruition because Boston is a different animal. There's a lot of players who never click there. I think of Pablo Sandoval. I think of Crawford. I think of numerous free agents who had great careers, went to Boston, and literally something did a U-turn. Boston typically does not get good free agents. I do think the Bregman signing was good. I don't think the Trevor Story was. I think they made a mistake letting go of Bogarts. But okay, everybody's perfect in 2020. I am interested to see where are they going to spend this $300 million that now has all been opened up in capital to see what happens and who actually wants to go there. Are we going to be in? I think we live in an organization that John Henry and Associates got 4 titles for us. I am forever indebted. Believe me, we went 80 plus years without one. But I think they are resting on their laurels. I think they're like, hey, you know what? We need to be serious, positive return on investment. We are not going into our pockets anymore. And that we are living in an era where you have to go into your pockets when you look across and you see the Mets, you see the Dodgers, and you see the Yankees. If you want to be a serious continual contender, you have to go deep. And I don't know if the Red Sox, especially with the Devers trade, in my humble opinion, I don't know if they're committed that way. But we will see going forward, right?
We will see. Uh, and the money that they did spend on Bregman, I thought that was a pretty smart signing. Had the high annual, like I think it was 3 years, 120.
Right.
But he had
Right.
the opt out after one, which everybody knew he's going to take the opt out, which I don't think is a smart move by him. I don't think he's going to get a higher than 40 mil annual value from anybody else. So
Well,
I don't know what
let
he's
me
doing
ask you one
there.
thing. Let me ask you one thing with respect to that contract, okay? Next year is the end of the CBA. We are going to see if a salary cap comes into baseball. The players are vociferously against it. The owners, especially looking over at the Dodgers and the Mets, it seems like there's an ownership drive for it. This might be the last year to get a real big contract. Think you?
It, it might be. And then, but here's the thing. I know this is supposed to be reviewing the season that just
I
ended, but
understand.
if we look ahead right now, we've already had a few guys who could be free agents and who could get pretty good deals out there opt in. Trevor
Trevor
Story
Story comes to
opted
mind.
in.
Right.
Shane Bieber opted in
Jack
for only
Flaherty.
16 mil. Jack
Jack
Flaherty
Flaherty.
opted in.
Yeah,
I mean, you tell me Shane Bieber couldn't have got 6 years from somebody?
I would think
I'm
so.
pretty sure he could have.
Yeah,
And he opted in to stay with the Blue Jays at only 16 mil. So
right.
I don't
How
know.
crazy is it we're saying that's a discount?
Yeah, that is crazy.
All right.
So,
Who in the American League impressed you the most this year that exceeded expectations, and also who disappointed the most?
well, Red Sox disappointed because I believe I picked them preseason to actually make that leap and go to the World Series. I
Okay.
don't know. You might have that written down on a piece of paper somewhere to
You
hang on my
do. You do. I had
you do.
Texas. So at least your guy made the playoffs. Okay. So
Okay.
yeah. Okay. We can move on.
So the Red Sox were a disappointment. A team that I did not expect any, because I never do, is the Seattle Mariners.
Right.
So, I mean, they got to Game 7 of the ALCS
Yeah.
and damn near won that. Uh, I figured, yeah, they're making moves. They got some good players. They're still the Mariners.
Amen.
So there's my
Amen.
American League surprise and disappointment.
I would say for me, the surprise team was absolutely the Seattle Mariners. I thought they literally have to be given the Heimlich maneuver because they always find a way to choke. I would say for me on the American League side, the most disappointing franchise was going in. I thought Baltimore really had some serious potential with all their young players. Somehow they screwed that up. All right, let's move on quickly to the National League. Your biggest surprise, your biggest disappointment.
Uh, Biggest surprise in the National League. I gave this one a little bit of thought and I couldn't really come up with anything. Everything in the National League to me seemed to kind of run kind of as expected, except for the Cubs. I didn't expect the Cubs to be as solid as they were. I mean, they won more games in the regular season than the Dodgers.
Right.
You know, they didn't make it to the World Series. They did get in the playoffs, and they got beat in the playoffs, uh, first round. But the Cubs did better than I thought they would, for sure. The Dodgers, Padres, they were pretty much did what we expected. The Mets, I never put a lot of stock in the Mets because I think of them kind of like the Mariners. So
Right.
Phillies were a little bit of, I guess the Phillies were a bit of a disappointment, even though they won their division uh, pretty easily. But I expected them to really, I think I said the Phillies were going to go to the World Series too. And the way they just got smashed in the playoffs, I mean, come on. They should, and I know they lost Zach Wheeler down the stretch, but that
Yeah.
was pretty disappointing.
Yeah. I for me the National League, the truly the biggest surprise was the Milwaukee Brewers. If you would have told me before the year, you've got to bet your life who's going to have a better record in baseball, Milwaukee or the Los Angeles Dodgers, John wouldn't be around right now. That would be a problem. They have, in the last couple of years, lost a lot of front end pitching, and they've lost their manager, they've lost their GM, and still they keep churning it out. And obviously they have a very good infrastructure. They obviously have a very good ownership. Kudos to the Milwaukee Brewers. It was a disappointing end to the season getting swept by the Dodgers. But boy, I was all in on the Milwaukee thing. And you called it early for Milwaukee and Toronto about how they put the ball in play. I I was very skeptical of Toronto. I was very skeptical of Milwaukee because their run differential really wasn't as great as some of the other big teams like Philadelphia and LA. But you know what? Proof's in the pudding. I thought they had an outstanding year. I thought they played great. I think the biggest disappointment for me was the New York Mets. I thought they had a lot of key pieces. I thought their pitching staff for the first half of the year was amazing, and it faltered down the home stretch. I think when you have Juan Soto, Pete Alonso having very, very solid years. I was looking at Juan Soto's numbers the other day. It is amazing how you think that guy is failing, and at the end of the year, there's 115 RBIs. There's, the 262 average. There's the OPS of 1,000. I mean, wow. That guy really, it was really probably the most under the radar, very solid season I can think of in the major leagues. But okay, we're going to go to one final question here. Brian, Major League Baseball is the only major sport that has two separate MVPs, one for the National League, one for the American League. What we are going to do on Off the Rails, because we're living on the edge, it might be adrenaline, it might be caffeine too, but we'll move off to that. And if they had one MVP and you had to choose between Aaron Judge, Shohei Ohtani, and Cal Raleigh, let me give you some quick numbers. Aaron Judge, batting average 331, 179 hits, 53 home runs, 114 RBIs, 137 runs scored. Let's talk about Cal Raleigh. Average 247, 60 home runs, leading the league. RBIs 125, OPS 948. And finally, the great Shohei Ohtani, 282, 55 home runs. Isn't it amazing, Brian, how many guys hit 50 home runs this year? It just blows me away. 102 ribbies, 146 runs scored, OPS of 1,014. What say you, Brian? Who's your pick?
Well, I would throw this one to Cal Raleigh. The reason I would give it to Cal Raleigh is, and it's not because Judge has won MVPs before, so give it to somebody else. It's not because Shohei has MVPs, give it to somebody else. No, it's every year stands on its own. And if a guy wins, is good enough to win 3 or 4 in a row, then give it to him. But the reason I would go with Cal Raleigh on this one is if you look at what his value is to his team. Aaron Judge, great season as usual, and the Yankees season went about as it usually does. Shohei Ohtani, great season as usual, and the Dodgers season went just about as good as it usually does. Cal Raleigh, great season, and the Mariners season exceeded what they usually do. His contribution to his team meant more to his team than the other guys to theirs. That's the way I would measure it up. That's why I would give it to Cal Raleigh. We had this debate for many, many years before the DH became universal. When I say we, I mean the baseball world.
Right.
You could never give a DH an MVP because he only played on
Okay.
one side of the ball. That's why
Okay.
David Ortiz had some phenomenal seasons. Edgar Martinez had some phenomenal seasons, but they'd get a couple of votes, but never really a sniff of a DH.
Okay.
Shohei Ohtani is basically a DH. He was last year, and then this year he was a DH, except for what, maybe 40 innings of pitching.
41.
Uh,
Hmm.
and, you know, he's a good pitcher. I don't think he's a great pitcher. I think he's a good pitcher, and that contributes. But Aaron Judge is an average at best outfielder. Cal Raleigh is a very good catcher. So there's the defensive
Yeah.
component too that I also think contributes greatly to when we're talking about the guy that's the most valuable. So I'm going with Cal Raleigh for 2025.
I think that's a great pick. I totally agree with you, my friend. First of all, I am surprised at you because and I mean this in the most complimentary way. You are a big advocate for average does matter. And I think the only slight I'm looking at Cal Raleigh is he has a 247 average. Okay, look, I agree with you. I think you're making the right pick because I do seriously believe that the best starting pitching staff in baseball was Seattle. Absolutely unequivocally. And the catcher is integral to that happening. He is calling the pitches, he is orchestrating what it is. And because they had such an exceptional year, they were fueled by that pitching staff. I think that that is an extra check mark that definitely needs to be used for Cal Raleigh. Aaron Judge, amazing year. I look back, it was 3 years ago. He signed that extension for 360. And then I look at what Vlad Guerrero signed for, and I think to myself, Aaron, you need a new agent. Somebody missed something there. I think really went sideways. And then Shohei Ohtani, obviously he's going to be the National League MVP. But in this, I agree with you 100%. He is a very good pitcher. He's a number two, maybe a good number three, whatever it is. But he doesn't fuse that team with so much energy, so much in. It's amazing what he brings to them. And I would not. He, like I said, I'd give it to Cal Raleigh. I think you laid it out very, very well, very eloquently. Let me ask you real quick.
Thank you.
We're going to be diving out of here. Is there a team that you liked that really made strides this year that maybe you think that's somebody to watch in 2026?
Oh, I'm going to say the Blue Jays. I mean, I
Okay.
think I probably picked the Blue Jays to finish fifth in the AL East. I did not
I think you
expect
picked
them
them
to be
ahead
as
of
good as they
Tampa,
were.
but yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
I did not expect them to be as good as they were, and they're the team that uh, really all of the pieces came together well. And by the pieces, I mean the guys like Ernie Clement and these other guys, not Vlad Guerrero. You knew he's going to do what he always does. You know, uh,
right,
I mean, aside from him as this big star, they don't really have any other big stars.
right,
And they came together. And here's my one more takeaway I'll take from the World Series. Uh, Watching the World Series, and this is my thing about putting the ball in play. It seemed like
right,
most of the innings we watched in that World Series, the Blue Jays had guys on base. They would get a base
right,
hit. They would get a double. They would get two singles. Uh, and you were always suspenseful that okay, here comes a big hit. They're going to score a couple of runs, whatever. That's exciting. The Dodgers, they won the World Series. They're the champs, but they had a lot of nobody on base, solo home run,
right.
and that was how they won Game 7. Four
Yeah,
solo home runs. Uh, there's not a
sure
lot of
was.
excitement in that. I mean, there's a
No,
excitement in that moment, but watching the rest of that half inning is pretty undramatic and boring. But when you got those guys on base and the pitcher's always checking and you're not sure if he's going to steal and is he going to go for that's exciting
right,
baseball. And that's the
right.
thing I think we need more of, and hopefully this World Series will highlight that and people will start looking for that more.
Well made. The team I'm kind of intrigued for, and I don't know if it's a stadium situation. the whatever Oakland, Sacramento, California A's, I was kind of impressed with the young kids they brought up this year. We saw Nick Kurtz, we saw Shea Langlers, we saw Brent Rooker, and especially Jacob Wilson. I mean, there wasn't a lot on the pitching front. They play in a bandbox. And the thing is, when you talk about a Miami or you talk about an Oakland, even when they are bringing up young kids, the default thing is, when are they going to sell them? When are they going to trade them? I am intrigued to see what the A's look like. Are they going to try and build something so that they can actually present a semi-decent product when they roll into Vegas in 2 years? But we shall see. Anything else to say before we peel off here, my friend?
Yeah, I know you said we're going to get on next week and do like a review of the major awards and stuff.
Hmm?
Uh, I just wanted to comment. I saw the Silver Sluggers for the National League yesterday, and what's a Silver Slugger for a utility player even exist for? We'll cover that next week.
Amen. Amen. I mean, honestly, Brian, what they should be thinking about is giving a golden urinal to a clubhouse attendant. I mean, that is about the only award not under Rob Manfred. I'm telling you,
Oh,
let me tell you something. If they were giving an award for CrossFit, you would get it. Best CrossFit in
thank you.
Southern California. I'm telling you right now, in baseball, literally, they give an award for everything. It is pathetic. It is weak. Man, anything to get a little airtime. And now with ESPN leaving baseball, I'm not sure how much oxygen you're going to get in that room. All right. That's it for today. We're done for Off the Rails for right now. We will see you next week. All right. Hit that like and subscribe, drop some comments, and we'll see you soon on Off the Rails.